Right. Let's get this thing rolling. We're not going to get you to lunch for a while here, are we? Okay. This probably fits over here a little bit better. Okay, hold that. All right, sure. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with the big picture and then we're going to go down to the small picture. I've already had a question about which Anderson we were doing today. So we're going to get down and we're going to show you exactly who we're following today. So big picture is the second day of the battle. It's July 2nd, 1863. 1, 2, 3. 3 days of the battle. It's very easy. They fought it very easy for it, so to speak. And what's happening here is Robert E. Lee has decided to launch an attack against the Union left flank. That would be my left. All right? And so, long story short, no pun intended, the Confederates are going to spend all day long getting into position. The principal attack force on July 2nd is Longstreet, James Longstreet's Confederate Corps. And they number roughly around, roughly around 15,000 men, we'll say, give or take a few. And basically, Longstreet does not start filing into position until around 3 o'clock in the afternoon. He should have been here hours earlier, and that's a whole program within itself. I think there's one on YouTube you can watch about the whole thing if you'd like. So anyway, the Confederates are starting to pull up here around 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So the artillery is starting to boom. Now we can't see it from these cedar tree, etc., but the peach orchard is down, the Longstreet Tower is down in this direction. Seminary Ridge, Warfield Ridge, they're basically one ridge, but it's in this direction. Where you pass the tower on your driving tour is where the first shots are going to take place. The artillery starts booming. The Union artillery is positioned over there where you see those bushes, those small trees off in the distance. That's the peach orchard. And that is where, I need not tell you the story again, where Dan Sickles is going to move his Union Corps forward into position. He's supposed to be back there behind that tree line, but he moves forward to out here, which is the apex of his line. He's in an inverted V. The apex of his line is at the peach orchard. And his left flank runs along behind this tree line over here. The beautiful thing about a battlefield is that it can teach you a lot. You know, if you've read a lot about this Civil War, that you can read 1,000 books on the Civil War, but it's a completely different game when you actually walk the field. And the great luxury we have here today is you can actually walk the field. Well, the terrain will teach you things that you can't describe in the book. If you go over to the Longstreet Tower down there, one of the things that you can see is the peach orchard directly in front of you. But it's what you can't see that's as equally as important. James Longstreet, the Confederate Corps commander who has 2 divisions in his corps, breaking it on down, is going to pull up at his tower over there. All right, he's going to climb up the tower. And when he gets to the top of the tower, he cannot see where the Union line ends. He doesn't know where it ends. Now, we historically know today, because hindsight's 20/20, and we got all these pretty little maps, that the Union line ends in Devil's Den. Okay? But he doesn't know that. So what he wants to do is, with his 2 divisions, is he wants to find the end of the Union line. So if I can get sister lives in New Mexico to come up here, right here, and we'll put Al right here, okay? So let's say that these 2 men right here are 2 divisions, okay? So this would be Hood's division, and this would be McClaw's division. In other words, he'd be down there, basically coming in position. He goes into position first. Well, Longstreet, the original plan was for him to move first. When he moved out, he was supposed to cross the Emmitsburg Road, turn, and then Hood would come up and fill in on his right. Okay, and they're going to attack basically in that direction right there. Y'all go back to your original position, right over here. What ends up happening is that Longstreet basically is being so hard-headed that he won't conform to the situation on the ground. He will not bend his orders. And Robert E. Lee, beyond a doubt, has a lot of faults. Well, not too many, Lord. But one of the things you'll never accuse Robert E. Lee of doing is not allowing his subordinates a lot of discretion. Would anybody argue that with me? And that could be both good and bad. So if you think about it, Longstreet has that discretion in my mind, but he does not want to exercise that because he's in a foul mood. So the only thing he does, despite Sickles having moved out and thwarting the original attack plan I just showed you cannot be conducted anymore because Dan Sickles' corps is sitting in the peach orchard. Longstreet therefore modifies the order the least he can do, and instead of having him move first, he's going to have him move first. This is Hood's division. Hood's division is all along through here where we're at, and goes across the modern tour road over there where you see that walker over there in the distance. It goes way past there. Hood's division is going to come in, and basically I need another person. Come on over here. Is that Stanford? Come on out here, you're gonna be a Yankee. You come on out here, basically step over here just a little bit. Ooh, shoes match your shirt, very good. Nice accessorizing. So if you think about it, what he's looking to do is he doesn't know, Longstreet doesn't know where the Union line ends, as I told you before. So what Hood is going to do is Longstreet's going to launch Hood's division, and it's going to be a right hook. Okay, and Hood's going to come out here, and he's hopefully going to find the end of the Union line and drive it in, okay? And when he drives the end of the Union line in, they're going to... How you doing? Probably a Yankees fan. What he's going to do after they drive in the end of the Union line is McLaws is going to come forward and hit him in the front. So if these two gentlemen were fighting this gentleman, Stanford over here, New Mexico is fighting Stanford right here, what is going to happen is a right hook and a left jab. Right hook, left jab. Now you're going to see during the course of this program right here that that's all fine and good, and it's actually going to work out that way, so to speak, a little bit, but not all the participants know the big plan. Okay, yes ma'am.
How many number-wise, like how big are these roughly? I have no idea.
Okay, so getting way off into the weeds, so pay attention to the important stuff, okay? No, I don't mean that smart. Don't let all this information overwhelm what your answer to your question. Longstreet has 3 divisions in his corps, and one of them is missing that day. Who is that division? Pickett's, George Pickett's division. So out of 3 divisions, he has 2 on the field, okay, right here. Out of every, I'll break it down for you. A division, McLaws and Hood are roughly around 7,000 or 8,000 men, okay? Within those divisions, it's a perfect setup question, and I appreciate that. In each division are 4 brigades. 4 brigades comprise each division. So what we have is corps, division, brigade, regiments, and we're getting down to Anderson right here. So what ends up happening is, y'all go over there because you're going to confuse them right here. I got to get some more people. No, I just don't need y'all anymore. Y'all just go over there. Right. Let's see here. Come on over here, CJ. I'll be introducing CJ in just a little while. Who else is a hapless wonder over here? Come on, you two. You shouldn't have drank so much last night. You wouldn't be in the shape you're in. You line up right over here. Somebody, some of the seasonals were reminding me the other day that I used to be in charge of seasonal training. You know, that's our part-time rangers, and they said, I don't remember this, but like 5 or 6 years ago, we took a tour. We always take a tour of Eisenhower, show them what's happening over there. And one of the old rangers, retired since then, told us that Mamie Eisenhower, a lot of people thought she had a drinking problem, but she actually had an ear imbalance. And apparently when we got outside the house, I told them that I had a lot of ear imbalance. That's a bunch of crap. All right, she's a drunk. Now you go over here behind there. You're going behind CJ. All right, right there. All right, who's next? All right, you come over here, dork. You stand right there, all right? So you stand right there. So I told you that each division has 4 brigades. Each division has 4 brigades. Now Longstreet sets up his division with a 2-brigade front and 2 brigades behind. Okay? So this right here where we're standing, I'll give you a little hint, is going to be the Texas Brigade. Hello, over there. And this is going to be under Jerome Robertson right here. Right over here we have the Alabamians under, come on out here, turn around, Law. Okay, right here. Well, that's pretty cool, actually. I've got the whole collage. You just stand right there. And you couldn't have timed this any better. Here, wearing that shirt out here. All right, so which one is Robertson? Right there. Okay, so let's keep going. Who is this gentleman back here?
Benning.
Okay, which is called the
Georgian Brigade.
What's his nickname?
The Rock.
The Rock.
Rock.
Walk him in.
Yeah. All right. So, you got Georgians right here, Rock Benning, and then over here we have, last but not least, who do we have?
Anderson.
Yes, we have George Anderson's brigade. So this gentleman right here in the blue and white hat is who we're going to follow today. So going back to your question, ma'am, we're going to go down from corps to division to brigade. Now in his brigade right here are 5 regiments. Okay? 7th, 8th, 9th, 11th, and 59th. But we're going to get rid of the 7th because they get detached because Jeb Stuart is not on the field yet. Or he may be on the field, but he's not on the field, all right? And so the Confederate infantry has to serve the purpose of the Confederate cavalry and guard the flanks, basically in a skirmish line. So this brigade goes from 5 regiments down to 4 regiments. And we're going to be following them 9th, 8th, 11th, and 59th in that order, from left to right. Does that make sense? Yep. So if you take down the division right here, we're going down to brigade, and then we'll go down to regiment. And they launch this attack. Any questions? That answer it right there. Now, I did not answer your question. What are the size of these? Well, it would vary. I've got it on my paper. Al's got it on my paper back there, what their exact size is. But generally, a brigade of 5 regiments should be around, an average regiment should be around, 300 men. So you're looking at anywhere from there you go, 300 and let's do it right now. Thank you, Al. Thank you, Al. So, according to my original research, right here, it is 5 regiments is about 1,400 to 1,600 men. That's coming out. All right, we'll do it. I'll break them down for you. These are fairly big size. These numbers are skewed for Anderson's brigade because that last number I keep saying, 59th Georgia. What does the number tell you? The higher the number, either side, the higher the number numerically you see a regiment named, the later in the war they came. Therefore, the later in the war that you came, the larger your unit is going to be because you haven't seen as much service. And everything that goes with that. Okay, so the 59th, notice how big they are. So breaking it down, we're going from from divisions right here, which are comprised of 4 brigades, and we'll break down Anderson's brigade for you, all right? So if you two would stand on either side of them, you come over here, red shirt, you stand right here, and you stand over here. Either way, just get in line, it don't matter. All right, so basically the brigade is in 4 regiment line. All right, so right here you've got the 9th Georgia, which is under the command of John C. Monger, if I'm pronouncing that right, 361 men. 8th Georgia, John R. Towers, 330 men. 11th Georgia, under Colonel Francis H. Little. He's 23 years old. Can you imagine? And Lieutenant Colonel William Luffman, who you're going to hear about later. They are 328 men right here. And then the 59th Georgia, to skew the numbers for you, is 559 men. That's what a later regiment does for you. Always remember, folks, that the big difference between your regiments, despite you also have to include the discrepancy in manpower, the wide range. There's just less military age men in the South than there is the North. I'm not surprising you with anything. But remember, the big discrepancy between the North and the South is that the South will put new recruits in old regiments. The North would just form new ones. All right, and that's also why you see those two causes right there, why you see Northern numbers go a lot higher than the Southern units. But I imagine this 59th right here is going to have probably a lot of conscripts in them. Just guessing. And probably a lot of older and a lot of younger than these others. Because they would widen the military age the further the conflict went. Any other questions?
One more.
Yeah.
Oh, they might come. Look out. All right. I was about to make jokes. We will not make jokes. We will see what will... That's what you get with age, you know. You just kind of watch sometimes. Try to. Any other questions? That was a very good question. I thank you for that. No? Tired already? We got good cloud cover right now. Now look, I'm not going to walk you all over hell's creation just to get you to the exact spot. You're going to get plenty enough, okay? It looks like a brand new hat, by the way. I don't know if you're a true fan or not. Do you see the picture of that girl when they hoisted the Stanley Cup? You got to check that out. All right. So, Anderson's brigade. Remember, I'm not going to put everybody back in the map. Anderson's brigade is going to be further down the line. If I had everybody assemble on the other side of Emmitsburg Road, think of how many cars we have here today. I'd have had them, y'all would have been backed up and down, and I didn't know how to put it on the map where to tell you to meet because it's not a major spot. So I thought the picnic area would get our cars off the street and so forth. So anyway, I'm not going to march you all the way down. What we're going to do is basically go down to the stop sign and hang a right and go down the slider lane. I'm going to keep you on the gravel as long as I can, but it won't be that long. But where we're going, ladies and gentlemen, is Anderson's brigade is going to be coming out of that wood line over there, and they're going to be descending down through this field, okay? Down through this area right through here. Well, judging by her mirror, she's a Christian. She's going to need it turn around there. Not funny? Okay. Come on, people. From here is your best vantage point if you want to see Anderson. Think of, or visualize is the word I'm looking for, Anderson's brigade going across this field, because Anderson's brigade is going to be on the other side of those 3 cedar trees you see right in front of you. You see what I'm doing? But you're not going to be able to see that well as we are up here. But Anderson's brigade is going to come across the Emmitsburg Road, and we're going to follow their path down through here, and we're going to be headed for that first thick tree line right over there, and eventually aiming for Rosewoods. For those of you who didn't hear, the reason I chose this tour first is because we burned this field not too long ago, a couple months ago. You might see some burned sticks and trees out there. I'm hoping, praying, I'm thinking right here that it would have inadvertently negated a lot of the bugs out here in burning this field off. So that's why I chose this tour. And also the grass is down. It's burned all the brambles off and everything. The grass is about knee high. But you will get wet. The dew has not burned off the ground yet. So for those of you with shorts, I don't know if it do you any good either way, but if it doesn't, if you might make you feel better, you might stay in the back. The ones in front will beat down the grass for you out there. Any questions? All right, let's once this car gets past, let's just go ahead and cross the road, and we'll stay on this side of the road. We'll go down to the highway, excuse me, the stop sign, the highway, and take a right. and go around through there.
Got one question. The
Yes.
Georgia Monument, that's beyond Anderson? Sort of maybe where Sims was? Or?
Yes, Sims, the entire, if you want to sound smart in a bar at 1 in the morning when things are getting dicey, hazy, the whole back row, I doubt they set this up on purpose, but it worked out this way. Remember, I said 2 brigade front, 2 brigade rear, okay? McLaws does the same thing. Every brigade in the rear line is Georgians. That's a very simple trick to come in, to remember it. So yes, the Georgia Monument could have gone anywhere along this road. So they put it up over there, and I really wouldn't read too much into it. Probably the War Department just told them that's where they were putting it. Actually, the Park Service would have told them that's where they were putting it. All right, let's cross the road. Like parenting, dude. Sometimes somebody else just needs to say it. I told you to swing the bat. Yep. We had the Little League baseball party last night, parents versus kids, and no, we gave them 6 outs per inning to our 3 too, and we were outnumbered. Hard to hit a rubber ball. All right, let's talk about something. I had a question on the way down here, and let's start talking about. Let's go back to big picture and go back to small picture about what's happening here. I told you that Hood and McLaws divisions are the ones that are coming across this field. All right, John Bell Hood is in command of 4 brigades. He is the puppet master, all right? Well, Hood dashes along. There's a guy, I forget which regiment. Well, one of the members, actually, of Anderson's brigade talked about, as they were starting off on the attack, that Hood and his staff came riding down the line. And if you want to picture like the Gettysburg movie moment where they're riding along with the flag flying, that's the way I pictured. I mean, he had all of his staff officers with him. Probably a pretty cool sight. But they come galloping along through here, and the Georgian would write later that it was pretty cool to see John Bell Hood. And when he finally he heard a little bit later that Hood was wounded shortly thereafter. So if you can imagine, he saw Hood right in his last moments here at the Battle of Gettysburg. Reportedly, Hood was wounded somewhere in the orchard in the Bushman farm, okay? This is the Bushman farm, and that's the orchard. The gentleman was asking me, was the orchard correct? And I could not answer that question. Was it bigger? I would think Cultural Resources has the orchard right. All right, so if you think about it, no, we don't know the spot. But if this is the size of the orchard, it's somewhere in here. How is that important? 1, it's pretty cool that I told you that. 2, it's cool that you're here. All right. 3, though, when Hood is knocked out of command, that creates a command vacuum. We don't hear about it much anymore. I don't know if we still do it. But during the Obama administration, we were constantly flying drones over Pakistan and Afghanistan. And we were targeting leadership with those missiles, you know, trying to knock out the leadership. I doubt the Union artillery knew who they were shooting at, besides they were big cavalcade. And I would say that the Union artillery that shot Hood had to be Smith's Battery and Devil's Den. That's one of the few times that I could say that, all right? But maybe not. It could have been over here at the Peach, or who knows? But it was a heck of a shot, whoever shot him right there. But when Hood is knocked out of the saddle, that knocks the puppet master out of these 4 brigade commanders. He's the one that's supposed to be manipulating this thing. And nobody ever went down in more of an untimely manner than John Bell Hood did that day. Because his next in command is Law. I was looking for the guy with the t-shirt. Was Law over here, right there. And Law is all the way up on that hill right there, big round top. So if you think about it, Evander Law has got to come down here, assume command of the division, and he has no idea what the situation is on the field. Anderson and Sims brigades only have orders to advance. Well, basically they all have to advance. But once they get out here, as you'll see, once they get out here on the field, it basically becomes a brigade commander's fight. They have to make decisions on the fly because they have no one orchestrating this big movement anymore. And that's going to cause a lot of confusion within the big picture right here. John Bell Hood's wounded. Any questions? All right, let me read you a quote. Okay, before Anderson's brigade is going to advance, and Anderson's brigade will be coming back behind the Snyder farm. See that farmhouse over there? That's the Snyder farm. Not to be mistaken with the Slider farm, which you'll see in just a second right over there. Okay. Captain George Hillier, 9th Georgia, he's going to be on the left, extreme left of the brigade. He's going to write, one of my men, the genial and bright young Jackson B. Giles, had been detailed as courier for General Anderson. He was a boy who had been at school with me in Monroe, Georgia from the time he had learned his ABCs. Always cheerful, bright, and willing, he was a favorite of all. He had at this moment ridden down to our line, and just as he passed around our left flank, that's going to be getting roughly around that Georgia monument, had dismounted from his horse and with the apparent intention of lying down amongst us. Just then the shell I have mentioned before tore away his left leg above the knee and dashed him about 10 or 15 feet down the hill. I got up and ran to him and instantly saw by the pallor of his face and the physical shock he had suffered, he being a rather delicate youth anyway, that he would not survive his injury. In other words, he's bleeding out. I placed him in as easy a position as possible and told him that as soon as the litter corps came to tell them, I said carry him back to the hospital. Then I added, Jack, you know we are going to make a charge in a few minutes, but if I ever get back to see your father and mother, what message do you want me to send them? A distinct animation came into his face as he looked me straight in the eye and said, tell them I died for my country. I learned afterwards that young Giles died at the hospital that same night. Yeah. Any questions?
Was he the one they called Old Grandma? Did you ever hear that?
You mean Anderson?
Was Anderson they called Grandma? Or Giles? Or
I never heard that. No, it wouldn't be Giles. He's a kid. Probably a teenager they put on the staff to keep him out of harm's way, and that didn't work out for him. You know, that's what they do to him. Litter Corps would usually get the musicians and the teenagers and the couriers. You know, if you had special favor and so you didn't want a kid. They were not inhumane people. They didn't want kids out there getting shot. But, you know, I don't know what the circumstances is of Giles. I mean, you can think of any certain, maybe he's just the only family he had. Maybe his daddy was in the ranks. I mean, there's a number of things. Maybe he just wanted to enlist. I don't know. Didn't work out. I'd hate to hear that news when he got home. Yeah?
You said Law was up on Big Round Top?
Yes.
They had possession of that and didn't attack down to the Little Round Top?
Yes, they did. They did. But there's a pause. There's a pause. All I know is, I don't know, look, you get in the battle, any battle, but especially the Battle of Gettysburg, despite all the voluminous accounts we have, the precise timing of things is always going to be up to a little bit of judgment on our part. But I know that Law, there is no, at least unless somebody wants to tell me about it, there is no known accounts of Law being between the Saddle and Little Round Top and Big Round Top, as his Alabamians, that flank is attacking up against Chamberlain and Vincent and so forth. So I assume that Law, and I believe he alludes to this in his book, was somewhere in those woods. I couldn't tell you the exact spot. So he comes down, that's why I put it where I do. I did find an interesting account about Law coming down to, as the fight, this is getting ahead of the story, but Law actually rides through here, somewhere in here, and rides over to the Longstreet Tower, basically, all the way over there, because McLaw, he's looking for General McLaws, but he actually comes up and has a conversation with McLaw's brigade commander, Kershaw. Was it Kershaw? Yeah, I believe so. About coming in to support him. So he's on the field, and he does assume command of the division, but it's kind of hazy other than that little account right there, which doesn't tell us much what he actually did out here. And I'm not criticizing the man. I don't know what I'd done either in the situation. I mean, look at his front. Look how far that reaches. What is he supposed to do about it? They're all now engaged in combat. Right here. So that's bad news for the private.
Question, I guess. Do you want to say anything about Hood and his
Battle of Franklin?
consideration about no, not about Franklin, about going around Round Top? He tried, right? He went to Longstreet several times and said that, but there were a lot of problems with it, I guess.
He could have. The question is why about Hood's protest and about going around around the Round Tops and flanking them. I think that goes back to the practicability of that plan. We could stand out here all day and talk about. But I think it also, I'll say that I think it goes into the temperament or the mood, maybe a better word, of Longstreet on that day. It appears to me, judging by the accounts, that Longstreet and Lee were not agreeing on the plan for July 2nd. Would anybody debate that with me? And so I think that it goes without saying that Longstreet did not want to make this assault. And I therefore state, and you could argue with this, that his temperament is subject to that. He's doing an assault he doesn't want to do. And here's his subordinate, his division commander, protesting to him to alter the plan in a major way. And he's already late. That's another, like I said, we could stand out here all day and debate that. But he's late. How late he is up to debate. But he's late, and he's in a foul mood. I believe it was it Kershaw? When they talked about Longstreet's column getting up to Bream's Hill and coming in sight of Little Round Top, that he talked about him, Longstreet and McLaws, riding back down the hill, and the two generals were saying things to each other that would not be passed in fashionable company or something like that. Longstreet's in a foul mood that day, and I just don't think he wants to hear it. The attack is late, the whole Confederate Army's waiting on him, and he needs to get it underway. And here's Hood, what he would probably consider dilly-dally out here. Is that a northern word? We ain't ever gonna get this tour over. Any questions? Any other questions? It is good though. I'm serious. I'm just kidding with y'all. Questions are good. I think I'll get more here than when y'all are in the weeds, so that's why I'm stopping. Literally. I tell you, I've been here at Gettysburg too long because I know that silhouette back there behind you is, I can't even see him, but that blue shirt is Charlie Fennell. That's when you've been at Gettysburg too long. If you've never, I'll do a shout out, and if y'all know Charlie, tell him. If you've never done a tour with Charlie, check him out. He's an entertainer too. He'll keep you in stitches. He actually did his dissertation on Culp's Hill. So if you ever want to do like a specialized tour, 2 or 3 hour tour, book him. Be a nice gift for that lovely spouse. Walk on down here. How funny, I love it. Is everybody here? The bad thing about those YouTube videos is once you do like a joke, I was about to do the Jim Morrison thing, once you do it on the videos, you just can't do it again because it's like a comedy tape that's been published, And I can't remember which jokes I've done.
And you're accused of using old material.
That's right. And I didn't really intend on using any material at all, is the thing. It's just all spur of the moment. All right. So, where are we? That big old tree. How do I tell you that big old tree? You see a split rail fence if you've got good eyes, and that big old tree actually marks the entrance to the Rose Farm driveway off Emmitsburg Road right there, to give you an idea of where that is. So Anderson's brigade, their left flank would have been further this way, and their right flank probably would have been roughly around that house as they came through here. Now I've got to conform to the modern situation on the field, and there is a modern fence sitting over there, so I'm gonna have to take you around through here. But Anderson's brigade, this is where they start, because of Hood's wounding, this is where things start to go askew. As you know, when Robertson's Texans brigade comes up through here, he's got 4 regiments in his brigade also. When they get up here, come, well, you're eating right now, come over here. He's 2 regiments, I'm 2 regiments of the Texans, all right? Eventually though, they've got the Alabamians on the other side, and the orders are to wheel to the left and dress to the right. Every brigade is supposed to do that. Wheel to the left, dress to the right. When they do that, the brigade line keeps stretching and stretching and stretching. You step on out there until it breaks apart and a gap opens up. So what ends up happening is 2 regiments of the Texas Brigade, instead of 4, end up attacking straight ahead. You'll see it when we get past this tree line. That's Devil's Den. That's going to be the 3rd Arkansas and the 1st Texas. The other half of the Texas Brigade is going to attack up the slope of Little Round Top. That's the scene though. Robertson has just now lost half of his brigade. And so that's what Anderson means, Tige Anderson. His nickname Tiger, I call him Tige. He wrote, as General Hood was being carried off, I received a message from General Robinson, commander of the Texas Brigade, that he was sorely pressed and asking me to come to his assistance on his left, which was exposed. His messenger pointed to where he was, and I moved my brigade from the Emmitsburg Road through the wheat field, which was somewhere out here in front of you, to find his left, and was soon engaged. When my command entered the fight, my brigade, as before remarked, was left in reserve, the line just outside the Emmitsburg pike. I recollect a small house just to my left, and I think a rock fence in front. I couldn't figure out the small house in the left, but that's a post-war account, so we won't hold him too much to that. But he may be right. He may be referring to Warfield, I don't know. Maybe he just was mistaken. He saw a lot of different fields. Okay. Where am I going from here? Let me get some maps out. Where's CJ? That sounds tentative, CJ. That's the situation right there. Why don't you walk around? Well, I don't have but one.
Oh,
congratulations. Right here. If you just want to walk around and point, put your finger on like Anderson. Right here. Yeah. You can just hold it by the side, put your finger right there, right there. And that's the big picture that's going on.
I'll be coming around, so.
Any questions?
Was this tree line here during the battle?
Yes, it was here, but I don't know how thick it was. Could have been thinner, could have been thicker, I don't know. But there was some sort of trees here. That's hard to say. That's the problem with maps. They don't tell you thickness, you know. That's the weakness in it. And I tell you what, I've never seen a map that I completely liked. But that's, you know, maps can't be fluid either, you know. There's always some gap in them. All right, so this is a cool story as the map comes around. You see that fence right here? It was this with the 9th Georgia. You can't see the exact spot, but you see how the snake rail fence directly in front of you dips over the hill? This scene, which I'm about to read to you, happens in that depression over there somewhere, or maybe going up the other slope, which is really cool. One of my favorite stories here, actually. One Georgian recalled, a little way out in the field, there was a staked and ridered fence. Just as I came to it, I noticed John Stevens, one of our men, with his arms hanging over the topmost rail. He was a plain farmer boy who lived near my home in Walton. I had often seen him plowing in the field and knew him for an honest, faithful, and true-hearted youth. The bullet had gone through his clothes, and I had not noticed any wound. I said, "What's the matter, John?" He didn't tell me he was wounded or complain of his hurt, but he replied, "Captain, if you will help me over this fence, I will try to go on." When he said this, I got a view of his face, and there too was the handwriting of a mortal stroke. I told him to lie down where he was and have the litter cord carry him to the rear. That night I remembered about Stevens and went back there before I laid down to see in person what had been done for him. I found a newly made grave in the middle of that field. He died where his fine spirit had still impelled him to say, "I will try to go on." All right. Another casualty crossing this field is John C. Monger of the 9th Georgia. He's going to go down somewhere out in this field too. Where are they getting, as Anderson's brigade comes across through here, what are they getting hit by primarily? It's apparently some Union skirmishers, but what else?
Artillery from the
And what? That's right. Where's it coming from?
peach orchard.
From the peach orchard. So the harrowing thing, if artillery fire is not bad enough, is that the Union artillery has crossed the T on them. When they move down in this field, the artillery is not shooting at them from the front. Stand behind me. So those two ranks deep right here, it's one thing to get hit by a cannonball from this direction, but if you got, you know, 2 men here, 2 men, 2 men, 2 men, you got ranks running this way, and you got artillery running, shooting from that way, then you can see how the casualty rate will go dramatically up. You can knock down a lot more human beings, or you can afford to miss and still hit something, you know, because it'll ricochet long through there. A lot of Georgians talk about that artillery fire and how glad they were to get out of this field. As we descend down into here, I imagine that as we descend past these woods, this is where the artillery fire is going to slacken because they couldn't hit them anymore. Where are we at, CJ? Did you show everybody?
Did everyone get to see the map?
No.
Good God.
I remember reading that Anderson said that this fighting here, you know, on that day was the finest fighting, if I recall correctly, that he had seen in like the entire war.
Oh, I wouldn't doubt it. You know, when they make statements like that.
Longstreet said it was 3 hours of the finest fighting that was ever done.
We hadn't lost yet. Were you planning on losing? Do you think I came all the way out in the weeds not to gain independence for my country? It's a small joke, a little southern, you know, little regional humor there. Right? No, don't think so. Okay, so we're going to go through here. Like I said, this is the grass. I don't think it's bad. If y'all did this with me 5 or 6 years ago, I mean, we were up over our waist. That's why I got out here so fast. So what we're going to do, we're going to pick our way through these woods, and we'll stop on the other side of the woods. And for those of you that brought along your phones or your cameras, you're going to get one of the great shots of the triangular field, Devil's Den, and Little Round Top that no tourist ever gets, all right? So let's take a walk on through here. Any questions? So you shouldn't turn the tape on. I had nothing to say. Yes. Yes.
And then the Confederates had a great deal of artillery along the Seminary Ridge. Why didn't they neutralize that first before they advanced?
Oh, they tried. It's very hard to neutralize artillery. Nothing speaks better of that than Pickett's charge, the bombardment. It's just very hard to neutralize artillery. The reason they were going to advance regardless of that, but the Confederates just don't have the firepower in order to do it. Neutralizing a lot of times just means that the other side just, so many shells explodes around them, they just feel it's not worth it anymore. So they just quit firing, and generally, if you want to call them neutralized, they're not destroyed, they just quit firing, and there's this like informal truce or whatever that, I'm not saying it was written in stone, but if somebody quits shooting at you, then generally you quit shooting at them, or you move to another target. You know, something like that, and that suppressing the fire might be a better word for it.
That's probably the smoke.
But you can see we're basically on the right flank of the Georgia line right now, the 59th Georgia. We're not probably, the 59th's probably not getting hammered that bad. Are they getting some overshots? Yeah, but they're going to be focused, the Union artillery will be focused on the left side of the brigade. From left to right, 9th, 8th, 11th, and 59th. And if you read the accounts, the people on the left side of the brigade talk a lot more about the artillery than the right side of the brigade. But you got to come out here on the battlefield in order to understand that. Why that would be, if that interests you. Okay? So yeah, they'll be coming through here.
So would they have been able to see what they were shooting at? Were they on the other side?
They might not be able to see the Georgians or the artillerymen.
The artillerymen.
They could, yes, they could see portions of it. Maybe not the whole line, but they would see them descend through the.
Okay.
But they don't really. I'm not saying they'd be shooting blindly, but if they did, they don't really care. You know, because there's nothing out there that they're worried about hitting inadvertently. You know what I mean? Because if they deem it in
the length of the line, they knew that.
Right, they would get. In some cases they would guesstimate, but a lot of you'd have to get up the peach orchard and get somebody out there with a mirror or flag or something to see what you could see at that time. But remember, they're going through a wheat field too. And remember though, folks, I mean, we're taking a while, you know, to get from this tree line. Nobody's shooting at us. These Georgians are moving across through here, you know, they're not robots.
Maybe a couple of spent rounds.
Dilly-dallying, no. Dilly-dilly.
I've got
Yes.
one question. So at this point, how much does Anderson know about the deployment of the Union forces? Does he know that there's men in Devil's Den? Does he know that they're on the Stony Hill? What does he know at this point? He sees the artillery over the peach orchard, I guess.
He knows that Robertson has summoned him to his left flank. He knows that it's somewhere in these woods, which we'll be able to see in just a minute, the Rose Woods, and that's about all he knows. He doesn't know. He's got one of Robertson's staff officers leading him into position. And that staff officer, basically that gentleman, whoever it was, is in charge of these, you know, 1,400 men, guiding them into position. It's all, they've never been here before. This is the fog of war. They don't know what the opposition is in front of them. They don't know what the terrain is like, and they've got to find out and hit them. Is that any different from modern war? You know, a lot of times you go back to Vietnam, is it any different? You know, you go out in the jungle, what do you know about it? It's all green. You can't see.
He probably just knows about some fire from on the left of Robinson because he got hit in the front and left, so that's probably all he knows.
I agree with you. Let's get through the tree line and see if it makes better sense.
Okay.
I am so full of antihistamines, I cannot be touched. I would not have to be embalmed. Cool shot, no?
Yeah, it's very nice. So would the woods have extended further, or I guess you're probably going to be talking about that?
Well, the woods we're worried about is this, and they're going to be thick enough. As I was saying, I know there was a tree line here, but I don't know the height of it. I would assume that it was not this tall or this thick or maybe both, because I don't know how Smith's Battery up there where you see at the top of Houch Ridge or Devil's Den, I don't know how they take shots if this wood line was like it was. So, you know, obviously they were shooting at the Texans as they come down through here. So this is a beautiful view, ladies and gentlemen. If you get out here and look at it, you've got basically the route of the 1st Texas coming up through here. The Texans basically, some maps have the Texans like starting here, going this way, and then maybe Anderson's brigade straddling them a little bit behind. That might make sense, if you will. back there. But regardless, beyond a doubt, the 1st Texas attacked straight through here. One of the more famous regiments from there. Let me get you a map.
And then the 3rd Arkansas was in the woods there.
3rd Arkansas is, we're going in the woods, but 3rd Arkansas is over there. You're right.
And is this Rose's Woods at this point?
Rose's Wood starts behind me. You disagree?
No.
When I get my map straight, you can see it.
So maybe this wasn't even here, what we just walked through. Is that a possibility?
He was saying earlier it's probably not as thick, probably, you know, trees sporadic around it. That way, Smith's 4 guns can fire at the approaching Texans and Georgians.
I would assume that the woods were here. The Warren map. I'll go back. I didn't know I was going to get this many questions about that piece of wood right there. I'm sorry, I did not think of that. But the Warren maps, the Union engineers came here. When we do something on this battlefield, we consult the Warren maps. Gouverneur K. Warren was not a corps commander here. He was the chief engineer, which means he is he's in topography and troop placements, logistics, stuff like that. Warren and his men come back here in the wintertime and map this whole place. That's how we put the fences back. That's how we restore the orchard at the Bushman farm. That's how we have the contours of the woods that are out here. The limitations of the Warren map is it doesn't show you height and thickness, nor does any map as far as I know right here. So I'll have to look at the Warren map to ascertain exactly how big. But I'm putting faith in my co-workers here. I would naturally assume that when we restored the landscape 15, 20 years ago, we'd have whacked these trees if they weren't here. So, yeah. And if you think about it, the farmer probably wouldn't be whoever, I had to look up the deeds, but you want to keep some trees out here for your livestock, shade and so forth, and you can't, if you notice, look at this, look at what I'm standing on. You can't farm it, so, you know, what are you going to do with it?
Unless the livestock ate it down.
Yes, livestock would got it beaten down. All right, John Reed of the 8th Georgia. It's going to be the 2nd in rank. He's going to be coming over here. Like I said, I had to get you around this modern fence. But John Reed of the 8th Georgia recall, this is a cool story too. We were double quicking across an open field and there was a stunning explosion of a shell in the ranks immediately to my left. You'll never hear another story like this. The shirt of Jeff Copeland, our 2nd sergeant, became red. And of course I thought he was wounded, but he ran on with us. Later that evening, Reed encountered Copeland and asked about the blood on his shirt. Copeland asked about the blood on Reed's shirt. Copeland responded it was actually Trav Maxey's blood which had stained him. Quote, Trav was the orderly sergeant of Company K. He had often said that if he was to be killed in the war, he wanted to be torn to pieces and die without knowing what had done it. I was told by several of his company that the shell must have exploded inside of his body, as his neck, head, and upper part of his chest were all gone, and he could be recognized only by his clothes. That's what Civil War movies haven't portrayed yet. That's what it's like. You're basically looking at half of a torso there. And what was the guy's name? Yeah, Trav Maxey was basically wearing him. That's why he was soaked in it. Can you imagine like that? And guess what? He kept going. Can you imagine being soaked in your friend's blood like that? I mean, literally, just bathed in it to soak you down. I can't imagine what I would, you know, I can't imagine. Anyway, Anderson's brigade, if they would have went straight, basically they would have ended up heading this way, all right? But since they had been instructed by Robertson's brigade to come in on their left, Anderson's brigade is going to start to wheel, all right? So they're going to be turning this way. So Anderson's brigade changes front from coming straight across this field right here to swinging to come in to the left of the Texas and Arkansas men inside Rose Woods. Once again, that staff officer is leading them in. Now the map, I could bring the map out and you see these pretty little regimental lines with them kind of tapered together and they're swinging in. You look at this terrain right here. It is not going to be that pretty. And they probably won't get all in, I don't know the order, but they probably won't get into the woods all at once. I would not surprise me if the regiments had to stop multiple times and realign themselves and get the companies back together. That's the true reality of it. There's one thing to look at a map, there's one thing to read about it, there's another thing to actually walk the field. You're not going to keep together a line and wheel it through the terrain like this. And, you know, still have everything pretty when you get through. Any questions? We're almost out of here. I swear to you, when I was here 5 or 6 years ago, it may not have been this rock, may have been one over there. I literally had to stand up on one of these rocks, and the group that was coming through here behind me, this is why I quit doing this tour, I could not see them. The ones in the back, I could see this part of the terrain, I could see the weeds moving above them, you know, but I couldn't see. And there was this one, I never forget, I don't know what her name was, but this lady came out, she had no idea what she was getting into. You know, because people see this name, Battle Walk, and they think I'm going to do the whole thing. I don't know what they think when they get out here. She was dressed nice, she had on good shoes, and you imagine what kind of shape she was. It was hot, it was muggy. By the time we got here, and I stopped, I could hear her cursing. Oh well, I bet she still has a great story about Gettysburg. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to get over here in the woods, see if I can find this deer trail, and then we're going to get in a little bit smoother sailing. But remember, Anderson's brigade is wheeling into the woods. Guy in Georgia, maintenance guy, told me one time in Vicksburg, he told me, he said they got this memo that they couldn't, there was this rare snake on the island, and they couldn't kill it and everything. One of his workers came in and said, the strangest thing just happened. He said, this snake committed suicide. And he said, the guy goes, suicide? What do you mean he committed suicide? Yeah, damnest thing I ever saw, man. Hell, he taking his head and beating it against the side of my shoulder. Which is probably not true, but it's a good story anyway. Did you fall?
Yeah.
You okay?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I was on this 5 years ago, but I've totally blocked out the tall grass out of my mind now. I remember this part of the
The thing about battle walks is, like, right now people are probably, not everybody, most of everybody, I didn't see anybody I thought shouldn't be here, like that lady was 5 years ago. But
would you tell him?
I told the group, but she wasn't listening. So, you know, get paranoid. I'm bathed in DEET. I don't know what could be wrong under there. The thing people remember about it once it's all over, you get back to the hotel room, you get a shower, you know, you go out, you get a drink, and then you think about what you saw, you know, and all the trials and travail. It's the same as the soldiers to a certain extent. You don't remember having to march all the way from Fredericksburg, Virginia to Gettysburg. That's not what they write about. They write about the end, you know. That's what stands out to them.
That was fun.
I have to be honest with you. I wasn't going to tell you all this because it was wasn't planned. But when Al and I walked to meet y'all, we actually went through there. I told Al when we came through, I don't remember that tree being there. But there it was, and there y'all were behind me. It'll be a nice little treat for y'all.
Ranger humor, right?
Yeah. That's what we live for, man. Climbing trees.
It's hard to find the exact
20 years.
Yeah, the exact thing, yeah. All right, so look at the terrain and how it slopes off. I'm getting ahead of the tour, okay? but I want you to please in your mind, because I'm not going to walk you back here just to wear you out, okay? And show you the exact spot. But basically we're going to walk to the other side of Rosewoods. We're going to do where the majority of the fighting is done. And then we'll conclude the tour basically on the other side of Rosewoods, the other side of Rosewoods. But part of the tour, part of the fighting by Anderson's... Yeah, they would have to come up here. Do you believe that? Do you believe how I'm treated here?
Close the road.
Oklahoma fan. I once went to a reenactment and I didn't have a group. I was by myself. It was up north and I saw there was some Mississippians, Barksdale's Brigade. I said, hot dang, man. I'll beat Barksdale's Brigade. So I went over there to join in with them. They're a bunch of Canadians.
Other car coming.
You gotta be kidding me. What is this, luxury car day? I don't know. If we get another car, all right, we're going to have to do something, all right? So this is what we're going to do, all right? When we see the car coming, we're going to do a freeze, all right? Where nobody, when they drive through us, nobody's going to move, okay? But you can pose in whatever position. Don't make it lewd, all right? You can pose in almost any position you want as they come by. That'll be cool. Can you imagine that little kid sitting in the back? That's what makes the Gettysburg trip memorable.
Yeah, man with the badge is giving me the...
Yeah. Okay, so back to the original point, if I can get back to the original point. Anderson's brigade, I hate to get ahead of the story, but this is a good place to do it. Anderson's brigade is going to attack, they're going to attack again, they're going to get thrown back. When they reform, when I talk about later about them reforming, it's in this area, okay? And I'm getting ahead of the story, and I'll pass around maps, so don't worry about it if you don't understand yet. But Anderson's brigade is basically going to be making their last attack from down through here, headed this way. And they're going to be attacking the side of Brooks' brigade, which is the 2nd Delaware, which is on this slope, is the reason I'm going into all this detail right here. Okay, so I'm not going to walk you, like I said, all over creation just to put it in order. But the heart of the fighting is where we're going. But this is actually a pretty cool spot too that we never illustrate. The how do you say it? Delawareans? Delawareans actually had to bend back their flank to meet the Georgians. But this is not right now, okay? It's later in action. Okay, let's take a walk on down. So that should give you an indication of War Department or Batchelder, our first historian, knew about exactly, roughly where the right flank of the 59th Georgia is coming through here. A staff officer would have been coming in. Now, as we come in to the Rose Woods area, you have to remember that, somebody pointed this out earlier, but you have to remember that there were farm animals back then. And the Rose Woods, once we get out here, you can probably already tell itself, is not farmable land. It is a bog, as some Georgians are going to write about it or tell about it in just a minute. It's a swamp. So when they get out here, the Georgians, that is, they start going around through here, they could have seen, because the farm animals had beat down the underbrush, they could have seen a lot further into the woods than we can today. All right, there is a stream which we'll cross up here in just a little while, I'll get to, and you'll see what I'm talking about. And it basically is going to be a stream for the farm animals. You got the Rose farm up here, and you got the upstream, and you got the animals downstream. Smart, right? So once they get into here, the Georgians are quickly going to bog down. The scene which is confronting them, though, is a lot of fire. They can already hear the Arkansas and Texans. Some of them saw the Texans fighting right over there. And Anderson's brigade knows that the Yankees have to be close. These Georgians know that they have to be close, but they're still unsure exactly where that Union line is. So the way the trail orients us, ladies and gentlemen, if you look behind you, this is the old trolley path. That's a whole nother story within its own right. But the trolley being put in here, suffice it to say that the trolley being put in here on the battlefield is one of the major reasons that this land is preserved today. It was really a big catalyst to the veterans to come out here and buy up this land. They did not like it one bit. So anyway, the remnants of this old trolley line doesn't run the exact advance of Anderson's brigade. Anderson's brigade would have been basically, as we walk the trail, headed from your left to your right. But because I'm not going to take you out in the swamp, thank you very much, Matt. You can write letters later profusely thanking. I got to go this way instead of that way, all right? So what we're going to do is we're going to walk to the other side of the woods. It's not bad today. It's actually the best shape I've ever seen this trail in for this time of year. We're going to walk to the other side of the woods and do Anderson's left flank first. Does that make sense? And then on the other side, we're going to work our way down Anderson's line. Make sense? Okay. All right. So what we're going to do is we'll take a little walk. That's a cool walking stick, dude. Right there. That's the first time. All right. All right. So let's take a walk down the trail.
Back there in the open area, you on the rock. Who owned that land there during the battle?
When we came across where I stopped and stood on the rock?
Yeah.
Timbers family. There's actually remnants of the farmhouse or the barn. I don't know which either, but there's a remnants of one of those two. I go in the wintertime, but they're actually, between there and Triangular Field. On that, we weren't too far from it. My understanding is actually not too far by the woodside. All right, if I could get, what about if I could get, I know you can't hear in the back, if y'all want to slide, New Mexico's sister that retired, if you want to come on over, it's fine. Go on back, you're fine, buddy, you're perfect. All right. Okay, we got a problem. Anderson does, that is, and we do if we're the Georgians. The Georgians are pushing on in here, and basically what they're coming up against is the Trobrion's Brigade of Sickles 3rd Corps, and they are coming up against, I'll read you the regiments in just a minute. They're also coming up against the Maine men, not the famous 20th Maine, but actually the 17th Maine. The 17th Maine is further down this line. I'm going to walk you down to the 17th Maine in just a little while, so let's forget about them. But the 8th, is that New York or what? 8th Georgia and the 11th Georgia are going to be attacking through this bog from here, from my right to your left, to the left, right through here, and they'll be going up against the Maine men. Here's where the problem starts with John Bell Hood being knocked out of command. Anderson's brigade has entered these woods, and all he knows is he's supposed to attack to the left of Robertson. He engages the enemy. Hood's brigade commanders, all 4 of them, were expecting that McLaw's divisions, the guys up by that modern tower that I've been, Longstreet's observation tower over there, they were expecting, according to the original plan, that McLaw's would come up and cover their left. So in other words, as the Georgians attack through here, they would have support over here. Well, when Anderson gets in these woods and where he can't see anything, he's in a declivity, he quickly finds out that he has no support on his left. And the reason for that, ladies and gentlemen, is because Longstreet, I guess altering the plan, has held back McLaw's divisions. Remember, we talked about Hood's being a right hook and McLaw's being a left jab right here. Well, the right hook is landing, but the left jab hasn't even started yet. So Anderson has got to do, on the fly, has got to do something about his flank, because the Union soldiers, you can sort of see it, you'll see it a lot better once we leave the woods. Up on this wooded hill right here is where the Union troops are going to be. commonly referred to as the Stony Hill. You could see a lot more stones back in 1863. It wasn't quite as heavily wooded. So when the Georgians, who were headed from this direction to that direction, they're headed in this direction, when they come out of the woods and they're attacking here, what did these Union troops do to them? They enfilade. That's right, they start shooting up the Georgians' flank. And the left regiment of Anderson's brigade is the 9th Georgia Infantry. And so Hillier is going to talk about, at this time, Hillier's going to talk about what he had to do in order to secure that flank. So, all right, General Anderson sent Lieutenant William E. Tennell, if I'm pronouncing that right, regimental adjutant of the 9th, to Captain Hillier with a dual message. Hillier's over here in this area. Captain Hillier was now in command of the entire 9th Georgia. He has gone from a company commander in charge of roughly about 40 men to in charge of 10 companies in about 10 seconds. Once he learns the word right there. The flank fire needed to be suppressed. Shooting down the flank, the 9th Georgia can't make any headway, the 8th Georgia therefore can't advance, etc. It's a domino effect. Anderson wanted 3 companies on the left back here to be bent back to confront the Union threat. Everybody always comes to Gettysburg, and they always want me to take them to see where Chamberlain bent back his flank. Like it was a novel idea. Right there, all right? So what does Hillier do? Who gets no credit, like William Chamberlain, Joshua Chamberlain, how can I mess that one up? Right through here. He's going to bend back his left flank, the 3 companies. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is roughly going to be in this area. Okay? I take it that the Georgians were trying to press through the bog and through the stream. And at what point they actually stop and the left flank is bent back, I couldn't tell you. Is it right here in the woods along the edge? Probably. Could they have advanced a little bit further and tried it? Probably. But the safest place for them to be, if that's not an oxymoron right here, is in the woods, obviously, because there's more cover, and you're about to see the best cover they can get in just a second. So Hillier is going to holler, "Attention, 3 left companies." But it is so loud in here that they can't hear his voice. So, therefore, he continued, "I ran to the left of the line and touching the men on the back, made the movement known mainly by signs." If you could imagine such a thing, and fronted the 3 companies to the left and rear at right angles to our position. Hillier estimated the fight continued for another half hour or so. If you can imagine that much shooting occurring. Okay, when he pulled back the 3 left companies, he discovered a problem. One of our company officers, Lieutenant Daniel N. Easley, who during the battle had on a bright new uniform, I had suggested to him to take it off and wear clothes less conspicuous, but he said it was a present from home and he was afraid he might lose the uniform if left with the baggage, and so concluded to risk it. When I made the movement of changing front a short time previously, he with 2 of our men had in some way been overlooked and had remained behind using one of the boulders as a little fortification. When I came back to where he was, I asked him why he had not moved to the flank with the rest of the line. He said he did not hear the order and did not know that we had changed positions until looking around, he discovered that he was alone with the 2 men mentioned. When I came back again to Lieutenant Easley, both were dead, shot in the head. Lieutenant Easley, looking up the slope, saw how exposed he would be if he tried to retreat. And Easley, being the oldest man in our company, but a tower of strength, although he then had a grizzled beard and gray hair. Discovering that he was alone, he determined to make the best use of his time, so taking the gun of one of his dead companions, he had employed it every moment in firing from behind that rock at the enemy in front. Between them, the 2 who met their death and Easley afterwards, he had emptied both cartridge boxes, shooting up at that stony hill. All right, so the left wing of Anderson continues to press ahead. That's the 9th and 8th Georgia. They confronted the 110th Pennsylvania from Detrobrian, the 5th Michigan from Detrobrian, the 8th New Jersey from Burling's brigade, and that's from the Union right to the left. 3 units from Burling's brigade, from Birney's and Humphrey's division of the 3rd Corps, confronted the Georgians. These units extended the line of the 17th Maine, tried to extend the line to the 17th Maine, which was to their left, or back over here. So what the Union is trying to do is to cut off these Confederates from getting in to that clearing which you see right over there, which is the wheat field in that area. Okay. All right. Any questions? Get my notes straight while you sit there and ponder life.
One of the Georgia regiments had been pulled.
7th. But I tell you the weird thing about that 7th, if you read their report, it sure looks like they were in it. But, you know, yeah, makes you wonder if they had that 7th. Do I hear somebody? All right. Okay. So what ends up happening? What ends up happening is right now you've got the 5th Corps coming in onto the field. And that's going to be Barnes' division, minus the brigade of Strong Vincent. Talking about Joshua Chamberlain. That's Joshua Chamberlain's brigade right there. So out of 3 brigades, 1 of them is up on Little Round Top and 2 of them are coming onto the field. That's going to be Tilton and Schweitzer. Tilton and Schweitzer, I'm not going to get too far into this because I'll confuse myself right here. But basically Tilton and Schweitzer come up here, and as Anderson is attacking, it depends, welcome to the Battle of Gettysburg. It depends on who you're reading, all right, and what historian. Some people believe that Tilton and Schweitzer helped repulse Anderson. Other people believe it was completely basically the 3rd Corps, Sickles' men, that helped repulse them. Who knows? But regardless, if they weren't here, they were here shortly. They were coming into line at the moment. Tilton and Schweitzer get up here, and that adds, at whatever time they get here, that adds more Union fire to that line right there. Part of the Union line is facing along the slope right there, and another line right over there is facing, what would that be, to the west over here in this direction. Once again, at right angles. This is getting ahead of the story, but later, if you've done this walk with me, Kershaw's brigade of South Carolinians is going to be coming down, and they're going to be relieving the pressure, at least on that far line. Before that happens, the Union troops that were facing toward the Peach Orchard or toward the west, it's going to be, Barnes is going to make the wrong decision and swing them around and put them all in the line along this wood line. He guessed wrong. And when the Kershaw South Carolinians attack basically the Wheatfield Road or the Peach Orchard area, they end up scaring Barnes to death, and he proceeds to withdraw his troops from here. So what ends up happening, in a nutshell, is there are 3 attacks by Anderson's brigade. You've got the initial attack, which I've been reading about. The Georgians come through here, they hit the Union line, they are repulsed, they fall back. How far they fell back is hard to say. Let's say midway through the woods or whatever, but they get out of line, they get out of range, basically, and they reform their lines, and they come on again. When they come on, they're meeting stiff Union opposition. But this is, you know, probably 45 minutes, an hour later when this second attack takes place. They cross the field right through here. And at this point, Tilton and Schweitzer, the Union troops, are being withdrawn out of the Stony Hill. And they're pulling back. So Anderson's brigade is going to be pushing up, except this time they're going to be up against lighter opposition. How it all panned out is hard for me to decipher, or for anybody to decipher. I could sit here and make just, you know, 100% accurate statements, and that wouldn't be true right here. I don't know if Tilton and Schweitzer are withdrawing at the time that Anderson attacks, if they've already withdrawn by the time he gets here, or whatever. But in some time period during the second attack, Anderson's going to be reaching, is going to be encountering a lot less resistance. And the Georgians can probably feel that, quote unquote, right here, all right? So as you go through here, I'll pose for it if you wanted to. As you go through here, one of the things that the Georgians talk about is the great defensive position. I'll be reading you some quotes about that in just a second, all right? But the great defensive position they talk about, and this is one of these things, everybody likes that. I've had more comments about people about that Devil's Den YouTube video about me pointing out the 3rd Arkansas Bowl out there. You know, it's like those woods over there. You never know what sentence from an hour or 2 hours that people just latch on to right here. But if you want to see something cool that like the 3rd Arkansas, this stream right here, which has no markers, is the same stream that these Georgians are going to get into. This is what they call, look behind you, this is what they call the fine defensive position, because there basically was a natural made trench. And they get inside that creek bank right there, and they're hard to get out. Like fleas on a hound, all right? Once they get ensconced inside that creek bank. So as we cross over the bridge, which we're about to clear the wood so you can see a little bit better, take a look to your left and the right as you cross over the bridge, and we come out into the clearing. All right, and I'll assemble you out here, we'll assemble out here on the road, and maybe we'll get a freeze in this time. Maybe the next car won't recognize me and try to run me over, right? So we'll get out here, but take a look for yourself, because we're not going to come back in here. They're going to outflank them. See if I got here. Where'd you get that?
Like just get a plain T-shirt.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, and then like they like Google their names. They put them on the page. They print them out and like heat press it on the shirt.
Oh, that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of a kind.
Yes.
It's original, nice.
Now no car is going to come. That's not going to happen, right?
No, I think one is way back there.
Yeah, they can't come this way, they would come this way.
I know.
All right. I wonder sometimes if that account I told you about that old lieutenant hiding behind that rock with those 2 dead men, I wonder if it's one of these sometime. Yeah. Pretty cool, isn't it?
Yeah.
You just can't mark everything
No.
when you get out of here. Okay, so hopefully it's starting to make sense. Here's your Union position up through here. See the monuments? Check that one out. Somebody wants a photograph. There's a great photograph right there, all right?
Sharpshooters.
Yep, they've got them all through here. The Union line's coming down here, and here come the Georgians. Once the Georgians get inside that creek bank over there, the 9th Georgia in particular, they're probably, especially those 3 left companies, when they're bent back, that's probably where I would stay if I was outnumbered or whatever. So I hope you're starting to see, ladies and gentlemen, how Anderson's brigade during their first advance, they're probably not hitting all at once. They're probably, as I said at another tour stop, their line is disjointed, etc. And they're just not, when you don't have your men all together in Napoleonic tactics, you cannot deliver firepower in concentrated forms. That's a problem. So anyway, they crash through here, they are repulsed, they go back, they reform, and there's a lull in the fighting. As I said, in the meantime, Tilton and Schweitzer over here start to withdraw. Okay, when they start withdrawing, yeah.
Why was that? Why did they withdraw?
I don't know if I can do this with the human map. Well, I may have a map. Why do they withdraw? because
Kershaw.
yeah, they went, well, it's still, he's got a legitimate question. This can be very confusing. I want you to come over here and stand over here and stand at right angles to him right here. So basically you got Tilton and Schweitzer at right angles, and the rest of the Trobriand's brigade would be mixed with him, okay? And they're extending the line out basically to where you see that down the slope and to where you see that stone wall over there. That's where we're headed in just a minute. That's the 17th Maine over there, okay? So, all right, so Anderson's Georgians are already attacking. And since they're attacking, here is where you're going to focus. Well, meanwhile, you've got other Confederates coming in right through here, and Kershaw is going to be sweeping into this line. Now, this is hard to do, but a whole nother program within its own right, but Kershaw's brigade splits. Half of them attack right behind you up the slope of this hill against the Union, and the left half attack basically the Wheatfield Road. Well, that left half is going to be coming up here. And what's happened meantime is that Barnes has guessed incorrectly. He thinks the main threat is here and only here. So what he does is he reverses this line and brings them over here. So tell me if this doesn't make sense. So when Kershaw starts, the left wing starts advancing here, what does he think is going to happen with these Rebs coming in behind him?
Flank them.
He thinks they're going to flank him, so he decides to pull out. And de Trobriand doesn't have any orders to pull out. So he's stuck here to a certain extent. So basically Tilton and Schweitzer withdraw. Most maps have them on the other side of the Wheatfield Road. I believe John Hoptack did a walk on that. Am I correct on that? And maybe not. But they withdraw over there to a certain extent and reform. But still the main fighting is right here. What happens meanwhile? Kershaw's brigade is going to come up here, and this half where this nice lady is right here is going to be where those orders are miscarried. Remember where they're about to capture the Union guns, and they're about to get there, and then the order comes to move by the right flank. And so literally she turns this way and marches across the front of those Union artillery, and he slaughters them right through there. And that chases them off. And so, you look, Barnes, hindsight's 20/20, it wasn't a threat after all. But Kershaw's men come tumbling down that hill right there, and they reform over, you can't see it very well, but at the Rose Farm in that area. So here comes Anderson again. And when Anderson gets out here, he's going to push out of the woods, and now the Union troops don't have, there's not enough infantry to connect the dots. The 17th Maine over here is in a pickle because they're fighting the center and the right half of Anderson's brigade, and now they've got the rest of Anderson's brigade creeping around their flank. Make sense? Oh, here we go. Get ready, Mac. All right, y'all ready? 1, 2, 3.
The driver did say, uh-oh.
Did you see all the national park stickers on the back of that vehicle? They'll never go to another national park. See anything like they saw here at Gettysburg, I guarantee you right there. So long as they don't write the congressman, we'll be just fine right there. Makes sense? So here comes Anderson's second attack. Make sense? And so what we're going to do is we're going to walk over to basically where that car is right now, and we're going to see what the 17th Maine is going to do. Okay, one more time. The Georgians have been trying to make for the gap, at least some people think, between the Stony Hill, now you can see it, the Stony Hill, and the Wheatfield. All right? In their way, ladies and gentlemen. In their way, ladies and gentlemen, is that big old monument right over there. That is the 17th Maine. Okay? The 17th Maine, one of the cool things about the wheat field, a lot of cool things about the wheat field, but the 17th Maine is deployed along this stone wall right here, okay? And I take it that the 17th Maine's line ran past through here, okay? Because when the Georgians start coming out, when Tilton and Schweitzer start withdrawing, and the Georgians renew their attack right through here, that's a problem for the 17th Maine because they don't have any cover. And so when the Georgians start, you can imagine Georgians coming out of that tree line a lot better than I can describe it. The Maine men can either get the heck out of Dodge or they can confront their adversary. And so what the 17th Maine does is goes from half of the regiment, basically, goes from facing toward Rosewoods to along this fence line right here. So once again, here you have another Maine unit that is at right angles, refusing their flank, if you will. They wheel it back and they confront the Georgians. So you get into a huge firefight. But if you look at this from this angle right here, this is the great thing once again about the battlefield. The Georgians can't make any headway because despite the Union troops having less men on this line, if the Georgians advance into that field, what happens to them? They advance into a crossfire. They're getting shot from the Stony Hill and they're getting shot from along this fence line. So the attack is bogging down again, at least on the left flank with the 8th and 9th Georgia. Make sense? Okay, so let's take the 11th Georgia and portions of the 8th. These are the two center regiments. Let's walk right over here to the edge of these woods. I won't take you into the briars.
Are you holding up to the briar?
All right. Okay, let's back up a little bit. Let's do the first attack from the 11th Georgia, coming directly towards you. Okay, this is not the second like I just told. This is the first. 11th Georgia presses the 17th Maine in front of this wall here. One Maine veteran recalled that the Georgians tried to plant their flag on this wall and even one color bearer was captured. The hot fire from the Maine men caused the 11th to recoil in the woods and retreat. That's the end of the first attack. Major Henry McDaniel of the 11th Georgia later reported, the advance was made in good order, and upon reaching the belt of woods in front, a vigorous fire was opened upon the enemy, followed by a vigorous charge, which dislodged them from the woods, the ravine, and from a stone fence running diagonally with the line of battle. Okay, this formidable position was occupied by the 11th Georgia, and a galling fire opened upon the enemy's front and flank, causing his line to recoil in confusion. Now, welcome to the Battle of Gettysburg. I think that that quote right there is that McDaniel skips over his first repulse. Why would you report that? All right, that's not vigorous when you get repulsed, right? And I think he's talking about the second attack. And when they attack through here, that's when they're going to come face to face with the 17th Maine. After the second attack, the 11th Georgia gained a lodgment, but they had suffered heavy casualties. Captain George Winslow, Company D, 1st New York Artillery. Where is that, CJ? Right over there where you see those cannons off in the distance. Hammered the woods with solid shot from only a few hundred yards away. Of course, as one Georgia officer wrote, quote, the men were completely exhausted, having double-quicked a distance of some 400 yards under severe shelling and a scorching sun. Okay. Where's Al?
Yo.
What did the cab driver say to Matt at 2 in the morning?
Hey, I got my own problems.
That's right. In the woods.
I don't need yours.
I don't need yours. That's what he said to me at 2 in the morning in the French Quarter. All right? It's words to live by from the cabbie in New Orleans. Right there. Okay, in the woods, the 3rd Arkansas. Now I'm changing front. The 11th Georgia, the 8th Georgia are attacking this way, okay? In the woods, the 59th Georgia. Remember that big old fat regiment, 559 men that I said at the beginning of the tour? They're the extreme right of the brigade. Now, I don't think y'all are into it. Maybe not. Maybe. I don't know. But I'm not going to take you out. I'm going to make the executive decision not take you in the swamp. All right? But suffice it to say, part of Anderson's brigade is attacking this way, and the 59th is attacking that way, further out in the woods. Does that make sense? Kind of at right angles. Maybe not a true right angle, but they're attacking up there. If you wanted to see it, that you would go in the Rose Woods on the other side and find the Indiana monument. They're attacking toward the 86 New York and all that. Anyway, they're attacking this way. At this time, 59th and the 3rd Arkansas are bogged down fighting the 20th Indiana and the 86th New York. The 3rd and the 59th are also catching bullets from their side. And the people that are shooting them from the flank are these men right here. Now that begs the question, could the 17th Maine see the Rebs out there, or were the bullets just missing the 8th and 11th Georgia and hitting the 59th? Probably the latter right there. I'm just guessing. All right, at this time, General Anderson came forward to confer with Colonel Little of the 11th Georgia. Anderson was concerned about the threat to his left flank, and he ordered the 11th to retire to the edge of the woods to regroup. That's the end of the first attack. Logic dictates that the 59th received the orders to withdraw, and Anderson on the right end ended his attack also with the left end. The time I would guesstimate for the end of the first attack was around 5:30. Okay. And you got a big old one right there. What did I tell you? To back up. Now let's get this attack going. Here comes Anderson again, the entire brigade in this second attack. Right through here. Now look behind you. Anderson cannot make any headway because he has not had any support on his left flank. The brigade that's supposed to come up, Sims Brigade, Paul Sims Brigade, actually stops on the other side of Rose Woods. The stone wall is still there. You and I have done that walk. Some of you, you and I have done that walk together before. Sims Brigade stops along a stone wall, which portions of it are still extant out in the middle of the Rose Farm field, and they don't go anywhere. They just stop. Why? Because they probably don't know where to go. Kershaw comes up, which I just described at the last stop, and then Hillier, who's in charge of the left flank of Anderson's brigade, talks about that. They finally get pressure to relieve, to divert the Union fire from them. Captain Hill recalled that on the second attack, he did not get rolling until Kershaw's right flank came up. Quote, our line thus reinforced moved some distance to the front and down a declivity into a strip of meadowland where a little brook ran parallel with our position. That's that bridge we crossed over right there. This little brook was made a natural ditch some 2 to 3 feet deep, and in its meanderings with its grassy banks made a fine natural rifle pit. We were quick to take advantage of the opportunity and occupied it. All right, so Kershaw storms on up, takes the Stony Hill. Sims at some point gets rolling and bridges the gap between Kershaw and Anderson. So I hope it's making sense to you. Anderson, Sims, and that gap right there, and then Kershaw in those woods over there on the Stony Hill. Does that make sense? 3 brigades come up into that area. Okay, Anderson is still on foot. He's rushing back to find reinforcements. He finds the 15th South Carolina, which has been become detached from the brigade. And he recalls, Anderson says, when I had located this regiment being on foot, I started alone down my line. That means he's coming down through these woods, walking his brigade line, to see what was being done, having sent my staff officers to different points. While going toward my right, I was wounded near a boulder and remained there for some time, the bullet passing through my right thigh between the femoral artery and the bone, rendering me unable to walk. If I wasn't being filmed right now, this would be the point where I would insert some profanity. Command devolved upon Colonel William Luffman of the 11th Georgia. And CJ, where's CJ? I have, which I've never seen before. Of course, I never looked for it today. You can hold that up for everybody. That's William Luffman, right there.
Who is it? I'm sorry.
Luffman, Luffman. It's going to devolve upon him, a lieutenant colonel, to command this brigade. That's how many officers have been lost. There is a gentleman. Does he go by Rick or Richard on his book? Rick. There's a Gettysburg buff named Rick Allen who, in a week or two, is going to be publishing four books on Anderson's brigade, and basically there's a short bio on every man in the regiment. And apparently when he does this tour out here, he concentrates on the officers. And the reason I'm giving him a plug right now, but he talks about how many of the officers were killed and wounded in the course of this combat. Suffice it to say, when you have a lieutenant colonel commanding out of 4 regiments, ending up commanding a brigade, you're losing a lot of officers. When you got a captain commanding a regiment, when you don't have a lieutenant colonel and a major to take command, you got your senior captain or maybe your second or third senior captain, you're taking a lot of casualties, to say the least. All right.
What did you say his name was? Rick who?
Rick Allen.
Allen. You can find it in, he's published through Savas Beatty.
Okay.
And it's not like the Busey books where they're doing just Confederate casualty. He does the whole brigade. Right there. I guess it's got a regimental bio on it too, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Tell Rick that that's as good as I can do for him right there. All right? A nice man. He once did me a favor, and I've never forgotten it. Okay. All right. Assault is renewed. Here come the Georgians. Georgians hit this wall. Second attack, 8th Georgia, maybe portions of the 9th. They finally got relief. They get up here. The 17th Maine is fighting it out with them. Bam, bam, bam. You can imagine them loading and firing as fast as they can. Georgians, I'm just guessing here, but less opposition over here at this point. Georgians start to appear on this flank. The Maine men obviously are taking casualties too. They're probably, if I had to guess, running low on ammunition. Maybe they had a wagon up here. But anyway, they're probably running low on ammunition, and here come these Georgians. There's one account of one Georgian coming through the bog right here, the flag bearer, and he gets mired down up to his knees in that mud out there, and he's shot. And one of his comrades talks about, I think about this sometimes when people talk about the Confederate flag. He tries, even though he's shot, he tries to keep going through that bog, carrying that flag forward. Obviously, only the bravest men would do that, but he dies there, standing there, holding that stick. So if you think about it, the Maine men are chased from this position. They start falling back. You got the 115th Pennsylvania, the 8th New Jersey's in this mix. But think about it, it's better just to picture it than to get lost in this minutia. Picture hundreds of Union soldiers going across this field. And I never knew this, but apparently, according to some sources, those retreating Union forces are rallied and they actually try to make a counterattack coming across this field. And the Georgians who have left the wood line here get into a firefight out there by Red Man's truck. See his white truck out there? They like white in their family, right over there. But they get into a firefight, and the Georgians are basically pushed back to this wood line. And well, they should have been pushed back because coming up behind de Trobriand's remnants and Burling's remnants over along that distant tree line is none other than Caldwell's division of the 2nd Corps. Caldwell's division was where the Pennsylvania monument is, and they moved down here and they set up their command. He has 4 brigades as he comes on the field. He leaves Brooks in reserve, and he starts his attack with 3 brigades as he comes across. All right, Kelly, Cross, and Zook. Zook being over here, I did them out of order, but Zook, Kelly, Irish Brigade, anybody? Hello? Hello? I actually saw yesterday a guy walking this street. I was coming here reconnoitering this program after work on my dime. Make sure that gets on video right here. And somebody had an Irish wolfhound right by the Irish Brigade mine. I thought that was kind of cool. Anyway, here comes a whole division of Union troops. Now listen to this account. Hillier recalled, he's somewhere over here. Just then we noticed a fresh line of the enemy which appeared to be a reinforcement and not to have previously engaged in battle. They were approaching us rapidly and directly in front of my regiment, but partly concealed by the smoke. I managed to call attention to them, and the word passed down our line to hold our fire. This new regiment of the enemy came within about 40 yards. What would that be, 40 yards? Some 6 feet in front of them was their color bearer, a splendid looking young fellow. Can you imagine? We could see and distinguish his features. A color guard of 4 or 5 other men were with him. His flag was a bright new one, and he gallantly waved it over his head in front. I mean, what does that say? Besides being brave, what does that say?
Shoot me.
Shoot me. All right. Just then, this is a cool description, and that's happening right here in front of you or behind you right here. Look at this while I read this description. Just then, this color bearer stepped back in the line, and Hillier wrote, "We knew that the volley was coming. With the precision of a dress parade, and that magnificent line of Federals lowered their pieces, and the volley came shortly thereafter. But we had time to duck our heads, and the sheet of lead passed harmlessly over us. But I could see where the bullets cut and plowed the ground behind us. Every man of us then seemed to realize our tremendous advantage." What is their tremendous advantage?
The other side has to reload.
The other side does not have a loaded weapon. There we were in this splendid natural rifle pit with every gun loaded. I rose up and looked along our line, and I thought then, and I think yet, that the volley, that volley had passed entirely harmlessly over our heads, and that by it we did not lose a man. All right, here we go. Our men rested their guns on the grass in front, and with that solid line of enemy in easy close range returned the fire. It seemed that not a bullet went above their heads or below their feet. They fell right or left. There was a space below the smoke, this is cool, of a few inches just above the ground, and we in our rifle pit, having our eyes nearly on ground level, could see below the smoke the line of their feet. Can you imagine smoke being that thick? This line rapidly thinned, and our men continued to load and fire. In a few minutes, the fire from the enemy slackened, and some slight motion of the air lifted the smoke, and there was not one of the enemy left standing in our front. They were not all killed or wounded, of course, as some had retreated, but there was a long line of blue on the ground, so close together that anyone could have walked over them as far as their front extended without touching the earth. I immediately thought of the flag. Remember the flag bearer? I immediately thought of the flag, and the idea occurred to me that nothing human could have gotten away with it, and that it was lying there on the ground among the heaps of those who had fallen. Stating to those near me what I was going to do so they might not fire on me unawares, I ran out to the place where I last saw that flag and looked all about for it, but it was not there. The man who bore it so gallantly, or some of his companions, had evidently gotten away with it. I remember to have had the momentary reflection that I hoped the color bearer that so won my admiration had escaped. But he didn't know. All right.
So during that second day, fresh Union troops were continuing to arrive.
They are continuing to arrive. The story of the wheat field in a basic nutshell, sir, is you've got waves of, like Anderson starts this attack in this area, okay? And then you have later on, you get Kershaw, and then later on you get Sims coming up when Kershaw goes back and gets him, okay? And then you've got you know, the original Union troops in here. You got the 5th Corps coming in here. They withdraw a small piece. And then you got the troops I'm talking about right now are from the 2nd Corps, the Cloverleaf, right? And they come through here. So my basic point is that you get waves of fresh Union reinforcements and Confederate reinforcements come in here. And what does that create, ladies and gentlemen? The big picture is this. It creates momentum shifts, right? So you get fresh troops pushing in. They got full cartridge boxes. They got full ranks. They push in here. They push them back, right? Then they repeat the process. They run out of gas. They in turn get pushed back and forth and back and forth, and all this time the bodies are building up in this area because of all these momentum shifts.
And some of these new Union troops were coming onto the battlefield directly after having marched up the road, whatever.
Yes,
roads from, you know, point
Caldwell wanted to deploy his division better, but he didn't have time. He basically had to send them up in there as fast as possible because he could get them in there. I got a map for you, it'll make better sense. I'll never find it. Here we go. I'm going to start around here. Any other questions? If you don't see the map, just come around. You just end up with it.
Yeah, different one, yes.
Right. Everybody see the other map? This is going to be the Anderson's retreat. Everybody see that one? Any other questions? Anybody got any good jokes? We're almost finished. What time is it?
12:37.
What was the name of that? Where's Pat? What was it? That was Led Zeppelin. What was the name of that? I Got a Woman Who Won't Be True. Oh, Riverside Blues, right? Wasn't that the one they released on the... Are you people not fans? What is the problem with you? All right. Okay. Any other questions? Let's take a short walk over here, and I'm just giving you a respite as we come through. Where's that map making its way around? Right over there. You just keep up with that. If you could, you just get in the back and now you hang on to it, and we're gonna play hot potato. Let's go over here, and we're just gonna make our way around to that. All right. So this is cool. As the map continue to come around. All right. So as it comes around, it'll make better sense. But if I had to guess, I don't know who the flag bearer was. If you want to get into lore and make it really truly romantic, if you will, one of the more famous units, and probably wouldn't be too far off, I would think it would be the Irish Brigade. The Irish Brigade actually, the monument is kind of confusing. People think the Irish Brigade advanced that way. The Irish Brigade advanced that way. All right, and they basically went behind their monument or to the right rear of it. And the brigade, it wasn't large, but I mean, what was it, like 800 men, 800 men?
90 men.
How many?
590.
590. Okay, about 590 men are going to go across this field right here. And as they get through here, it's still, with only 600 men, they'd be out here, they'd still stretch into this field. So if I had to guess, the flag bearer Hilliers is probably from the Irish Brigade, which is cool. I could definitely believe that because they were hard fighters. Now, coming up, in front of you, if you can imagine, or directly behind a lot of you, is going to be Everett Cross's brigade from Caldwell's division. Remember the 2nd Corps? They come up here, they align along the top of this ridge right here, and they get into a shootout between them and the Georgians. Remember now, Anderson's Georgians, look at their position from afar. Anderson's Georgians hold the edge of those woods. And Cross's brigade, Cross does not press the attack. Cross comes up here and basically gets in a shootout with Anderson's brigade, and so they, however many minutes it took, Cross's Union boys expend all their ammo. And so Cross goes to his boss, the brigade commander goes to the division commander and says, I'm out of ammo. I need somebody to come in and relieve me. Caldwell has one last brigade in reserve, and that is going to be Brooks Brigade, all right? And Brooks Brigade is going to be on the other side of these woods, sort of up there where that group is that we're going to go. So what I need you to see from afar, ladies and gentlemen, before we get in the woods and you can't see it all, I'm going to walk you up here and we'll conclude around the corner up here, is that Brooks Brigade is going to come in, and they couldn't have come in at a better location. I believe it's on that map that's coming around through here, right there. Brooks Brigade is basically, you want to come over here? How's that going to be? You face toward A right there. This is Anderson's brigade, and I'm going to be Brooke, okay? Carol's going to be Anderson. Good old Confederate Georgia. So here comes Brooke. Let's say that, you want me to hold the camera and you be cross? Okay, all right. If you think about it, as they come through here, they start to come up, and Brooks Brigade is going to catch Anderson's brigade right on the edge. What does that mean for Anderson's brigade when they start hitting them in the flank and going past them into these woods? That's big trouble. So Brooks Brigade comes in at the right time, at the right place, at the right moment, flanks Anderson's Georgians out of there. I don't know how the word went down the line, but I'm sure it went fast. And Anderson's Georgians are running pell-mell through those woods again, trying to get out of the front. In other words, as Brooks' boys were coming through the woods, I don't know if they could, if they had orders to, but in front of them would have been hundreds of fleeing Georgians as they flushed them out of the woods. Somebody asked me, one of the gentlemen, I'm sorry I can't remember which one of you it was, but some gentleman asked me why the Union monuments were on the other side of Rose Woods. The reason those monuments are on the, the west side of Rose Woods over there is that's Brooks Brigade. And basically what they do is Brooks clears out Rose Woods of all rebels. In Anderson's second attack, which had dislodged the Yankees from here and gotten into the wheat field, comes to a grinding halt, and they have to withdraw again. Basically to where we had to hop over that tree, remember when we entered the woods. And that's why I hope it rolls all into one for you. Right?
Where does Brooks stop?
Brooks stops basically behind his modern day monuments, along that edge of that slope. There's a decline or declivity behind the monuments. That's where his men would be. And they start shooting it out with, I think it's like the 15th South Carolina and portions of Sims, Georgia Brigade. But anyway, all these rebels, all the Anderson's boys go back to where we traverse to get into Rose Woods today. Is it making sense now? Mm-hmm. And so, what's going to end up happening, look at his Jeep, dude. You got to up your game, man. We got a Yankees Jeep, man. We got to get rid of the hat, dude. You got to get serious about it, man. I don't know. I like that Jeep. No, I was comparing your Jeep to his Yankee hat. Any questions? All right, why don't we just walk you on up, because it'll be easier jump off point for you to get back to your car. We're going to go up in the woods. We'll be going a couple hundred yards, and we'll get to the intersection. We'll talk a little bit more about Brooke.
Where the Confederate was behind the
C.J.
shot.
Whitlock is about to tell you, but I can tell you're almost standing on top of it right now. Where's Pat? Y'all look out. Why don't y'all, while we're at it, why don't y'all just, well, after the car passes, why don't we just come over, get on one side of the road, everybody can hear better. In fact, why don't we just retreat up here just a little bit? Yeah. Yeah. Old Beetle. Not too far behind. You must have got her up early today. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I'm going to have a story for you one of the more famous stories from this area of the field. I don't know if there's a famous story, but there is a prodigy kid that has made it through. How many stages are there in the guide test now? That license guide test? 4? 4? Where's Red Shirt Man? 4, all right. He has made it through 3 of them, and he is, how old are you?
I'll be turning 23 in June.
23 in June right here. His name is C.J. Whitlock, and he actually knows, if you're curious about it, he has a Rolodex memory of Revolutionary and Napoleonic War. And I'm talking arcane stuff like the Spanish campaign and stuff like that, all right? So what CJ's going to do, our future minute LVG, is he's going to come forward and tell you about Colonel Cross, the 5th New Hampshire, which is the left flank of Cross's brigade as they come up here, and the story that surrounds his death. Mr. C.J. Whitlock, right here.
Hello, thank you for that introduction. Well, it's just a short story. Colonel Edward Cross was the colonel of the 5th New Hampshire, and then he would eventually take command of the brigade that held that regiment. And the story goes, he would normally wear a red bandana around his head, under his cap. And then when they're about to go into combat, he's going to have one of his officers, the officer gets the red bandana, and then he's actually had a premonition of his death. So instead of a red bandana, it's going to be a black bandana around his head. And then when Hancock's, his corps commander, Winfield Scott Hancock's riding in the area, today, Colonel, you're going to get your star, referencing he's probably going to become a brigadier general after his service here. And then he tells Hancock, General, this is my last battle. He believes he's going to be killed. So when his brigade's coming in, they're like, as Matt said, they're running low on ammunition, and he's walking around, and a colonel presents a good target, and then he's actually going to be mortally wounded. Is it by that rock, or is that where he's shot at?
I believe it's where the monument is.
Yeah, that's the 5th New Hampshire monument right there, so he's going to be mortally wounded, and he'll die not long after the battle. So have that short story go.
Tell him about the rock.
Oh yeah, right over there.
No, where's the other rock?
Oh, the other rock. Is it that? That one right there.
What?
Tell him what it is.
Oh, that's the rock where the guy who shot Cross came from. And isn't one of the officers orders one of the other Union infantrymen to go over and kill the guy who shot their colonel.
Right. Waits on it. That old Reb poked his head out from behind that boulder right there, and they killed him. Shot him in retaliation. Pretty neat though. I mean, that's close combat where you can see actually the person that shot your leader, your commander right there. Yeah, through there. Pretty cool. All right, so this is what I'm hoping it's doing, okay? All right, when you get ready, we could basically conclude here, and I'll save you a few steps. But if you think about it, ladies and gentlemen, Anderson's brigade, basically their line runs out somewhere on the other side of the hill. 59th Georgia, 3rd Arkansas come pushing up through here. They're pushing back the 20th Indiana. There's their monument behind you right there. They push the Union troops out of here. They start pushing them back. And then all of a sudden, Cross's brigade comes in here and outflanks them all and just shoves them all out of the woods. So what I want you to get out of this is Brooks' brigade, the last brigade in that Union counterattack, is going to go this way. All the way down. Remember the trolley path we came through the woods? They would have, if we were walking down that trolley path, instead of going, Anderson went from left to right, Brooks went from right to left. And that's how those monuments get on the far side of Rose Woods. That's where the counterattack stopped, in that area. So what ends up happening right here? Oh, Ken, here you go, buddy. Right here.
That'll be me tonight.
Let's see, here's Brooke. Put you up here. Y'all have opposed each other, I'm sure, plenty.
My husband.
Right there. All right. And let's see, who else we got here? If you put that camera down, I could use you. The come over here, Philly special. You get right here. You get right here. Who else? Come on. You're gonna appear all in this film, aren't you? You're gonna get all up here. Anyway, basically, what you've got right here is you've got all the Confederates bearing down, and Brooke is right up here. He comes up in this area and he bumps up at the other edge of Rose Woods. Here is Anderson's brigade at this shovel. Okay, and you're all discombobulated right over here, all right? Just give me a few steps back. But you're not doing anything. He's not doing anything. But you can't get past Sims' brigade, who are on the other side of these woods right here. When that happens, ladies and gentlemen, Brooks' brigade bogs down. And that is when Kershaw holds the Stony Hill. Will make her both Kershaw and Sims. They hold this whole position. And then there's one last card. We'll make him Kershaw. We'll make you Sims right here. And then there's one last card. Who wants to be the last card? All right. Longstreet launches his last brigade of the day, which is going to be Wofford's brigade. Once again, Georgians. They are starting literally from behind the observation tower, and they are literally attacking down the Wheatfield Road, down through there. When Wofford starts to come up, look where Brooke is. When Wofford starts to come up, he's got a fat, fresh brigade, and there are no other fresh Union reinforcements on this field. Here's the Wheatfield right here, and Wofford, you start to come forward. When Wofford comes, you start to go forward. And as you start to advance, keep walking past him. What position is Brooke in on the other side of these woods? Bad. Because all these Confederates are marching past him. So, just like Brooke swept the woods, Anderson's brigade, and this speaks highly of the Georgians, reforms, and they start to pressure. Remember when I came out of the woods and I told you, remember where you were? They start to pressure the left flank, the Union left flank of Brooks' brigade. Sims' brigade starts standing them up in front, and with them being flanked over here, Brooks' brigade is going to come out of the woods about as fast as they went in there. All right? It becomes a race, ladies and gentlemen, for the Confederates to cut them off. And show you how combat turns very quickly. There's no telling how many Confederates were taking pot shots at them as they ran across the woods this time. You know, just like a deer, you would go deer hunting or something, except a human doesn't move that fast. And Brooks is thrown back. So what ends up happening now is you now have this Confederate wave. You've got Anderson, you've got Sims, right here. You have got Kershaw, and you have got Wofford. And the remnants of these Confederates clear the Wheatfield. They go over the top, and where you see Pat's car over there with the parking lights on, illegally parked, I might add, that almost just got hit. Make sure you get that on video, eh? Right over there. I want to document all this right here. Is they push the Confederates push the Union troops out of these woods, and on the edge of these woods is what? What are you looking at? What's over there? The Round Tops. And Wofford's brigade and the remnants of these other three Confederate brigades start forward, but there's not enough Confederates basically left in order to take the hill. They talk about around a Confederate flag. You're talking, what did we say in the beginning of the tour? Like 300 men in a regiment. They talk about like 30, 40, or 50 men being around one Confederate flag. That's all that's left out of for whatever reason, the attrition rate out of those. They're not all dead or wounded, but you know, some people like to get a break every now and then. So getting a drink of water or something like that. But there's not enough Confederates left in order to take that hill. So my point is, ladies and gentlemen, that that you can fight as hard as you want, and I don't know what else you want from men. Okay, if you take Anderson's brigade right here, how many times did they attack, and how many times were they repulsed, and how many times did they reform? Only veteran troops and only very good combat troops can reform multiple times under that kind of pressure. to say the least. That speaks very highly of what they were doing. All right, so in conclusion, Busey and Martin lists 1,497 men present for duty. Of this total, 47% were killed, wounded, or captured. These are extremely high casualty rates for Gettysburg. Out of the, I'll go from left to right on the battle line. 9th Georgia, out of 340 men, they lose 189. That's 55.6% casualty rate. 8th Georgia, out of 340 men, they lose 172. That's 55.1%. An average casualty rate on this battlefield is probably around 20 some odd percent. That's twice the rate. The 11th Georgia, who hits the 17th Maine, has to attack across that swamp. Out of 310 men, they lose 201, or 64.8%. 59th Georgia in these woods, who's larger, still loses as many, but they have the percentages less. They lose 142 out of 525 men, which is 27%. If you took out, if the 59th was an average size regiment, the casualty rate would be over 50%, which has got to be one of the highest, to say the least. Now I'm going to conclude. I like to do something different. Where'd he go? Where's my newly minted future LBG? Did he hit the road? Right here. He flanked me. Okay, I'm going to have CJ read this in conclusion, and I have not seen this letter before in print, but what it is detailing is it is a letter from two boys in the 9th Georgia, John and Tom Monger, to their mother in Quitman, Georgia, writing about the death. These two boys are writing home on July 18th to their mother about the death of their father and her husband. Right there. Now, John apparently could write, and I take it Tom could not. So if you come up here, he'll tell you all about it. Yes. It's this short way on the other. Wait till those motorcycles take. I can't imagine writing this letter. I can't imagine receiving this letter.
I wrote you a few days ago concerning the death of our father. He was killed on the 2nd of July, about an hour by the sun. He is buried in a family graveyard half-mile below Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, on the Chambers and Baltimore Pike. Captain Sutliff had a good coffin made for him, and we put him away as well as could be expected. I have the dimensions of his coffin, so when we get a chance to move him, we can get a box for him without any trouble. Pa died very easy, Tom says. I was not with him when he died. I was detailed and sent off after cattle some 3 or 4 days before the fight. Tom took good care of dear Pa until he died, but he lived only a few minutes after he was shot. He was shot with a mini ball through the right breast and a grape shot from a cannon through the bowels. Dear mother, we tried to carry him to Virginia before we buried him, but it was impossible as the Yankees were all around us and we could not get across the river without being captured. Dear mother, let us all try to meet him in heaven. Tom and myself will try and be better boys. Tom kept the stars on his coat and a lock of his hair. I wrote you a few days ago, but was in so much trouble that I did not recollect what I wrote. Dear mother, Pa has his horse here. I would like to know what to do with him, as I cannot draw feed for him. I can sell him, but he will not bring more than $300 or $400 in the condition he is in. And as for getting him home, it would be impossible. I will be able in a few days to send you $1,000, which will help you buy a place to live on. I received a letter from Sister Mary the other day and she says she wants to sell you and live near us. See her and get a place near each other if you can. I will try to get Tom off home as soon as we fall back from here. I received a letter from Sister the other day directed to Pa. She wanted to send his account for writing Mr. Peacock's will. It would be impossible for us to get it. I heard him say that he could not charge him less than $100 in interest. Dear Mother, in my next letter, I will send you Pa's resignation, which he wrote out after he went into Pennsylvania. He intended handing it in as soon as he returned to Virginia and go home. Tom and myself send our best love to you, dear Mother, Sister, Molly, and Skimpy. Tell Sister to write immediately. Is nothing in the world relieve us more than to hear from home. Your affectionate sons, John and Tom.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to, you can finish off tonight. You could probably find it on YouTube. You can go home tonight and pull up that scene from Gone with the Wind where the Gettysburg casualties come home and the families are standing around the train station, and check that out. I don't know if that actually happened in this case, but something similar happened. And I can only imagine what that mother and that wife felt when she received that letter about her fallen husband, a guy that was about to try to leave the Army anyway, to say the least. I hope you've enjoyed the tour today. I've certainly drug you all across Hell's Half Acre, to say the least. For those of you that gotta be going, that just don't want to hang out in these woods for the rest of the day, you can just turn around and you can go down that road and it will take you down to that fallen tree that we crossed over right there. I want to thank 42 people for coming out here and helping keep these brave men's memories alive. Thank y'all very much. I appreciate it.